WashingTECH.
There is a lot of, I think, opportunity where we don't have government acting as efficiently or positively as we'd hope for private sector leaders to collectively drive positive change and make a difference.
Are you worried about your kids' safety on the internet? We are here to help. WashingTECH's 5-step checklist will take you through the process of protecting your kids, and will give you tips on how to set up the best parental controls for your children on their devices. You want what's best for your children. They deserve to be safe online. Our step-by-step guide will help you make sure they are. Download WashingTECH's online safety checklist today to protect your kids online. Find it at protectyourkids.online. That's protectyourkids.online.
Welcome, tech policy leader. You are about to embark on a journey into the world of technology policy. Here, you will have insider access to the planet's most authoritative voices working to promote innovation, protect citizens from harm, and most importantly, ensure the forces controlling information respect democratic values. Hold on to your seat as you soar through cyberspace, guided by influential voices in the field who are here to lead you on a journey of discovery. Your mission is to learn what it takes to keep our virtual world safe, how to manage content responsibly, and defend the universe against technological threats that could disrupt our civilization. Please enter the flight deck.
My guest today is Ahmad Thomas, CEO of the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, the region's most dynamic business association. He's a change agent and next generation business leader who partners with 350 or more member companies. They're doing a lot of work on equity and tech and looking at climate. So I'm pleased to welcome you and welcome Ahmad. Ahmad, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Joe. I'm truly honored to be here, and it's a real pleasure to connect with you.
So tell us about, give us a quick mission statement and vision of the Silicon Valley Leadership Group.
Well, sure. In brief, our history dates back to the late 1970s. We were founded by David Packard of Hewlett-Packard. At the time, the 30 largest companies in the Valley got together to create this entity that would make investments and create advocacy around making the Valley a more competitive place to do business and a better place to live. And you fast forward to today, virtually every major technology company on the planet that is headquartered in Silicon Valley is a member of this collective entity. And that mission hasn't changed, trying to improve the quality of life in Silicon Valley for all residents, trying to make our region more competitive from a business standpoint, but also trying to drive a new vision and era of corporate citizenship, which has really been what my leadership, I hope, has been all about.
So tell us about your background and what brought you to this work.
Sure. So my background began 20 years ago on Capitol Hill. I spent 6 years working for Senator Feinstein, tremendous experience working for her. She's someone I deeply respect, and I did her banking and economic policy work. After that, I transitioned to investment banking, where I spent the majority of my career. I led $15 billion in infrastructure related deals as an investment banker, and left that to come lead this storied organization. My academic background, I'm an MBA. I also have a graduate degree in public policy. So I hope it's a combination that gives me both a set of lived experience in terms of my background, but also understanding business and how decisions are made at executive levels.
And I noticed that that y'all are focused on doing more policy work that's responsive to the political changes that we've seen over the last several years. Tell us about that. And I'm particularly interested in climate and, the role of climate and technology policy and where those intersect. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, well, certainly I appreciate what you've shared about our work, which I hope is more new frontier and more technology focused than we often see from many of these large groups. And I would say that it starts with a baseline of education. We find that for a lot of members, when we talk about how certain technologies work, there's really not the appreciation there should be in terms of that function, and also then figuring out how to make the best public policy that supports that technology. And I would say around climate, it's been very broad-based, whether it be autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, work we've done around infrastructure and funding in Silicon Valley or California or the region as a whole, tax incentives that support solar and clean technology. There are many, many high return on investment choices that we can be making at the federal level, but also at the state level, that collectively can drive a very positive climate impact. When we look at things that might be somewhat mundane, but in terms of creating new markets around technologies connected to clean vehicles, where small policy decisions or even regulatory decisions can help drive positive technological impacts, then I think being able to have that focus, again, when you look at it from a broad-based set of impacts, it is incremental, but taken as a whole, it's quite positive.
So now I noticed that SVLG is doing a lot more work on race and equity, and I'd love to hear more about that, and particularly from the perspective of privacy, and for when it comes to racial equity, we're talking about unwarranted surveillance, and then also on the information accuracy side, and how folks in your world are thinking about those two issues.
Yeah, it is. It's such a complicated set of topics. And I've been so impressed with your work. And as I told you at the top, one of the reasons I'm so honored to be here on your podcast is just given the focus that you've provided to these important issues. And I would say first to level set, when we talk about leadership, and what I hope not only me, but the group of executives that are driving change as part of this organization, I think we can point to tangible differences that we've made in the past couple of years. So if we look at public policy, there's two pieces of legislation in California that are paramount. Now, it's tangential to the question, but I want to get to it. One is legislation that mandates racial diversity on corporate boards. And a second, which was the top priority of the Black Caucus here in California, was legislation to decertify police officers who really went way over the line and were found to have acted with misconduct. And we came out and supported both of those pieces of legislation. We're actually the only major business group in California that came out and supported the legislation to decertify these police who had gone over the line. And I think what we're finding here is that there are some real gaps in what government can and should be doing. And it's incumbent upon us in the private sector, if we do believe in this new vision of equity, if we do believe that collectively we can drive positive change, this set of corporations, it's incumbent upon us to act. So really where we've been focused has been those quality of life issues for employees in the Valley, taking a more expansive view of what quality of life means. If I can't walk down the street in a city in Silicon Valley and feel that I'm safe, or feel that I might be treated differently if I am pulled over, that is impacting my quality of life. And I think our CEOs get that we need to tackle those issues and the root systemic issues that underpin them.
voice of tech policy, WashingTECH. We see you.
So now tell us about the federal initiatives that your members are most concerned about.
Yeah, I think right now it's really issues of implementation. So we're very pleased to see the CHIPS Act be signed into law. Inflation Reduction Act has many components that we believe are positive. And we have a situation here where we have billions of dollars that we believe need to be directed to high return on investment projects. Look at broadband and broadband infrastructure as one of them. So we've really been focused with Commerce, with our state officials on implementation, particularly around CHIPS Act, around Inflation Reduction dollars, to ensure that one, our companies are competitively positioned to put those dollars to work, but two, there's an economic multiplier effect that is very significant here. CHIPS Act, we all hear about the chips, but there's actually a significant workforce development component to that legislation, workforce development funding. So if you ask me what my top priority has been, the past month, it's all been around legislation that has actually now become law and working around implementation. I would say that the environment in Washington is also pretty uneven. I don't think that's that's too far afield to share. And also we have a set of economic conditions that remain pretty volatile. So in some respects, we're also focused on this idea of doing no harm, where we want to ensure that we have a economic playing field that remains very competitive. I think the interest rate environment also creates some challenges in terms of consumption on the consumer side and just the cost of funding. And you've seen this contraction more broadly, which is quite a significant focus of ours, keeping tabs on that. Now, that's more the Federal Reserve and broader economic issues, but certainly top of mind when I address that question of yours.
Let's turn to talking to our future tech policy leaders who are listening. What is some advice that you have for them to be more engaged with some of the information they learned here today, to be more engaged in their own communities?
Yeah, so a few thoughts come to mind. I think when we're speaking about the technology issues more broadly, it's really investing that time and effort. And it doesn't need to be the leader per se, it could also be their staff, but investing that time and effort to understand the technology at play, understand what issues are most relevant, where regulation, if you take digital assets or cryptocurrency, an issue like that, where you can move in a manner that can protect consumers, but also ensure that a marketplace continues to grow. And with more knowledge and exposure, decision makers are best positioned to make those choices. Or you can not expose yourself to varying viewpoints or dig really deep into the technology, which I think is not the right tact. So the first piece of advice is to really immerse yourself in said technology to learn and make a decision about public policy and whether regulation or policy is even needed from the most informed viewpoint possible. I also think that there's a real opportunity for those of us in this sector who understand that we have not been perfect and understand that there is room to grow in addition to all the things that we do well, acknowledging where there's shortcomings. I think there's room when those leaders are in the room to have candid conversations. And I think having more candid conversations with trusted individuals, whatever industry you're working with, is desperately needed. One thing that I found on Capitol Hill was always so helpful to me was either when I did it or sitting down with a member, but hearing from CEOs to hear what is going on in their market, where are their challenges, where can we ultimately help drive markets and be more productive. I think all of those things would be very helpful for electeds looking to tackle these issues. And beyond that, I think understanding where you can have an impact that's very positive and then really leaning in from there.
What are some books, movies, shows, and other resources you'd recommend for folks who are listening?
Well, it's interesting. I really most enjoy, and where I spend my very limited free time, is around leadership and reading books that are most connected to leadership. And if I had to pick one, I would pick Endurance, which tells the story of Shackleton. And it's popular in many business schools. I think their leadership courses taught around this. But essentially, on an expedition to Antarctica, the ship got plugged in the ice, and miraculously, he was able to keep his entire crew alive. And there's some leadership lessons in that book that have been, I hope, very much a part of the way I act and lead my organization, which I think so many in government can benefit from. And it really, at the end of the day, is about creating a culture that is positive and values everyone around you, setting a clear set of goals and essentially never wavering from those goals and where you're trying to get, and being extremely clear and explicit on why said goals are important and you need to get behind them. So there are communication elements to that. There are elements organizationally that I think are very important. Beyond that, it's just a very inspirational story. So that's one book that I always recommend to folks that I enjoyed very much. And I've read it, multiple times over the years.
What are some final ideas you'd like to leave with us before we close, Ahmad? And where can we find you online?
Well, if you go to svlg.org, you can learn more about Silicon Valley Leadership Group or learn more about me and the initiatives that we're working on. I would just say that, one, we have a very committed group of leaders in Silicon Valley that are invested in a vision of a new corporate citizenship, a new era of leadership, one in which equity, climate issues that have a double and triple bottom line are very much core to that ethos. And I would say that there is a lot of, I think, opportunity where we don't have government acting as efficiently or positively as we'd hope, for private sector leaders to collectively drive positive change and make a difference. And I hope that our organization is at the center of that movement.
Ahmad Thomas is president and CEO of the Silicon Valley Leadership Group. Ahmad, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joe. Really appreciate it.